During World War II, a time of great conflict overseas, musical entertainment on the home front gave men and women an opportunity to forget about troubles of the war and come together to listen to the musical groups and big bands of the era. Popular jazz, swing, and big band tunes, such as In the Mood, swept through clubs and dance halls, strengthening American culture. Locally, the Totem Ballroom at Norumbega Park, located in Newton, Massachusetts, and the Mansion Inn, located in Wayland, Massachusetts, were trendy places for locals in this area to go and enjoy musical entertainment during the stressful times of World War II. While nationally celebrated artists such as Glenn Miller, Frank Sinatra, and the Andrews Sisters performed at the Totem Ballroom along with other locations, smaller and more local groups and bands performed at the Mansion Inn. American music was also celebrated overseas thanks to United Service Organizations established on different fronts of the war. Troops gathered to dance, listen to music from home, and enjoy themselves. Despite the negative connotations of war at the time, these groups and soloists helped American culture and music flourish by leaving lyrics and music that capture the sentiments of people on the home front during the war. World War II, the first war to take place during the period of nationwide electronically distributed music, defined American culture through songs about social, racial, and political tensions and national events such as the attack on Pearl Harbor. As patriotic fever swept the nation, so did propaganda pertaining to both the war effort and the entertainment industry. Music swept through concert halls, army camps, government buildings, hospitals, factories, and ballrooms. With the invention of the radio, people could begin to tune into performances and listen as well. In 1940, 96.2% of northeastern urban households had radios. Music performances became more popular than movies, books, and newspapers. As tension grew overseas, barbershop quartets were forming, swing and hot jazz was becoming popular, and romantic ballads were being written at home. As Henry Cowell once said, all musicians were shaping music for total war. Music being produced at home was directly related to what was going on overseas as well as the domestic war effort. Songs such as Lena Horne's If They Feel Like a War, Let Them Keep It Over There expressed people's determination to continue with the policy of isolationism. Other songs expressed general sentiment against the war from the people, feeling about their husbands at war bonds, and situations at home. Some tunes were just written to keep spirits high and people upbeat during the time of worldwide tension. In an attempt to increase patronage between Boston and Auburndale, Norumbega Park, which did have an amusement park, was opened in Newton, Massachusetts in 1897. It was named after the Norumbega Tower and is located near the Charles River in Newton. While it gained great popularity in the first half of the 20th century, its popularity declined after the end of World War II, and it closed on 1963 on Labor Day weekend. A Marriott Hotel and Norumbega Park Conservation Land now exists where the park used to be. Norumbega Park's famous Totem Ballroom, initially known as the Great Steel Theater and eventually nicknamed the Pole, opened in 1930. The Totem Ballroom served as Boston's premier ballroom, and it attracted famous swing bands and artists from all over the nation. While people came from all over to enjoy themselves here, alcohol was not permitted. Some of the most celebrated entertainers in the country that performed there include Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman, Dinah Shore, the Dorsey Brothers, the Four Lads, Frankie Laine, Frank Sinatra, and the Von Trapp family. Music and performances from the ballroom were broadcasted for the public on stations such as ABC, CBS, and NBC radio networks. We were able to get in contact with Ruane Cromit, a former Norumbega Park goer, and he gave us a description of his memories at the park.
The Totem Pole had a history of hosting many of the big bands of the 40s and 50s. I first went there in the early 50s, and it cost 10 cents to get in. The owners made it affordable to the masses. The interior of the Totem Pole was similar to a current Las Vegas showroom with tiered, upholstered semicircular seats with a table. Most of the shows and dances were on the weekends. There were trolley lines from Boston to Norumbega down Commonwealth Ave. There was a car barn and a turnaround at the park. Thousands traveled from the inner city to visit the park. I went to 2 proms at the Totem Pole when I attended Newton High School. Norumbega was really an amusement park with rides, outdoor music, games of chance, and a small zoo. I worked 2 summers in the 50s at McManus Ice Cream Stand adjacent to the park.
You want to see the band you've heard? Well, here's the message, pass the word. After that you go, you find it toting at the totem pole. You want some fun, you want to dance, you want that spirit called romance. You want some play, new and old. Just ask Freddy Gare at the totem pole. Brand new Route 128 to get you there and you won't be late. Take it easy, driving along. The band will play your favorite song.
The Mansion Inn, a Victorian landmark that was located in Wayland, Massachusetts, served as one of the most popular dance halls and places to gather in Middlesex County during World War II. Located on Dudley Pond, the dance hall with a nightclub atmosphere attracted local bands and had their own orchestra. Unlike in the Totem Ballroom, drinking was allowed in the Mansion Inn. Many people traveled from far away and dressed up to attend the large events held there. Unfortunately, the inn was destroyed by one of the worst fires in Wayland's history on March 24, 1956. During World War II, the United Service Organization established clubs and gathering areas for troops on different fronts overseas. This organization, created in 1941 by the request of Roosevelt, held camp shows, dances, social events, movie showings, and musical performances to boost the morale of servicemen and women overseas. Many of the men in the military referred to these centers as a home away from home, where they could identify with fellow Americans and hear news about home through popular entertainment. Some artists who performed at the centers include Bing Crosby, Judy Garland, Bette Davis, and the Andrews Sisters. Now we can learn about some of the artists that performed at these places and their music. Glenn Miller was among the many famous musicians during this time period and was specifically known for his swing and big band, the Glenn Miller Sound. This band was similar to many standard 17-instrument big bands during this time. They entertained troops with upbeat songs and romantic tunes. Miller enlisted in the U.S. Army Force, but brought his musical life with him. He was captain in the Army Specialist Corps and strove to boost the soldiers' morale with music. He was responsible for modernizing and popularizing the Army Band, known as the Glenn Miller Army Air Force Band. They gave hundreds of performances and were broadcasted for millions. Miller also organized a network of service orchestras to help the war effort and boost morale in Europe. One of his biggest hits, In the Mood, heard in the introduction of our movie, topped U.S. charts in 1940 and was one of the most famous swing hits ever. His song, Moonlight Serenade, was a popular love song for romance during the war.
I bring you and I sing you a moonlight serenade. Let us stray till break of day in love.
Frank Sinatra also gained great popularity during the war. He was unable to serve in the war because he was classified as 4F, meaning he had a perforated eardrum and was also not psychiatrically stable for war. Instead of helping with overseas efforts, he became a huge celebrity at home, especially with women. His songs were reassuring to women whose husbands had gone overseas to fight in the war. His shows were also broadcasted overseas to troops as part of the Armed Forces radio service. His song, I'll Be Seeing You, became an anthem for those overseas at war. The lyrics talk about the excitement of seeing your loved one in all the familiar places that they used to spend time in, and how each place brings back memories for them.
In everything that's light and gay, I'll always think of you that way. I'll find you in the morning sun, and when the night is new, I'll be looking at the moon, but I'll be seeing you.
The Andrews Sisters, three sisters from Minnesota, Laverne, Maxine, and Patricia, became an iconic musical trio representing women and life on the home front during the war. They encouraged the U.S. to purchase war bonds with their rendition of the song Any Bonds Today, and also helped found California's famous Hollywood Canteen and New York City's Stage Door Canteen. These were welcome retreats for servicemen, where they often performed for soldiers and sailors. On tour, they often treated servicemen to dinner. They recorded victory discs, which were distributed to the Allied fighting forces. This musical trio was dubbed the Sweethearts of the Armed Forces Radio Service for their many performances on shows like Command Performance, Mail Call, and the GI Journal. Their hit, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy, was written before the United States entered the war, but right after the start of the peacetime draft, which was made to strengthen forces in anticipation of the war. The song is about a known Chicago street musician who was drafted into the Army by the Roosevelt administration. He was a known bugle player and the top man at his craft, so it says, but the Army did not have use for his musical talents, so he blew the wake-up call, or reveille, every morning. When he did so, every musician was reminded of music and its positive effects. The Cap, an Army captain, or the company commander, realizes the men are blue and forms a bugler company. The bugler is able to find his place in the military. He blows it 8 to the bar in boogie rhythm. The company and troops are enlightened by the music, but he also becomes accustomed to playing with other instruments, and it becomes hard for him to blow a note if the bass and guitar isn't with him.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man at his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone with the draft. He's in the Army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie-woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Their song, Don't Sit Under the Apple Tree, is about two young lovers promising fidelity while one is away serving in the war.
Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. No, 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 don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Till I come marching home.
After World War II, our nation emerged as one of the most prominent nations in the world. American lifestyle proved to be more enjoyable than it had ever been before. Despite the time period being a time of death and destruction overseas, American music and culture had been enriched and strengthened by talented artists and their performances at clubs and dance halls across the nation, as well as locally in Massachusetts. Stories and sentiments of the time period are held within the lyrics of their songs and will stay with us forever.